Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. Today, I have with me Shadow Gaming, a content creator in the Division community who is very adept at bringing a bunch of details to the community, daily targeted loot farms, a bunch of really awesome builds that the community has enjoyed. And in this video, he's going to be walking through some of the beginner tips that will basically work for anybody that's picking up this game that's new. And all I'm doing here is basically listening. I'll also be running with him in some of the context, and I'll probably be showing some of the things he's talking about as well. And he has a wealth of knowledge in the Division game. You must please check out his channel. It's Shadow Gaming. I'll put a link for you guys in the description. And so without any further ado, Mr. Shadow, please introduce yourself to those who may not know who you are, sir.
All right, man. Thank you, Matt, for putting me on this channel. I appreciate it. So yeah, basically what I do is every morning I make a daily video farming series. It used to just be this targeted loop map readout thing that I used to do, and I took feedback from the community and evolved it into something that I felt could be good for beginner and even veteran players. Just something that helps you every day along the way with this game because it can get really convoluted and complex sometimes. So basically, I like to go over, all the build suggestions possible throughout, the me talking every morning. I like to show the targeted loot and all the DZ exclusives you could farm for, all the named items you can farm for, exotics, the best and fastest way to farm for them. And I just like, to help the community enjoy this game as much as I do, to where, it's just an enjoyable game and it's not as much of a headache to play anymore. Aside from that, I like to make build videos, and I'm working on more guides and anything else that could help the community that I feel is worthwhile for my audience and any other viewers that might enjoy it.
Cool, cool, cool. Good stuff, good stuff. All right, so today you have 5 tips that you want to share with new players. You already gave me the list and all of that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you these questions because these questions are actually inspired from comments that you've gotten on your channel and just some of the things that you feel like new players should know. So the very first question, and I feel like the answer will basically clue new players into some of the ways they need to approach the game is, what do you think are the best talents in the game?
Okay, yeah. So this is something I got multiple times from just, comments on my daily videos and even some build videos as well, just having discussions on the alternatives to the build and what talents you could use besides what I showcased. And basically, I would go with backpacks first, and then we'll go to chest talents and what synergizes the best, in my opinion.
Okay, I'm here at the recalibration library so I can show them too.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm over here as well. It's just easier to check them out. So, starting off with the backpack talents, you got combined arms as the
Mm-hmm.
first one.
Mm-hmm.
That one's great for sure, but everyone's gonna go for the force multiplier backpack with perfect combined arms. It's a Hana piece. It's really good, and I've actually been having a discussion with my latest build video with the skill damage build, and I really like that build. And honestly, you have two options with a skill build on a backpack, really, if you're not going to be using the memento, which is really, in my opinion, more of a DPS skill hybrid. But really with an all skill damage build, perfect combined arms is great. But at the same time, it's every 3 seconds. It's a really, really short amount of time, but it does give you 30% skill damage. So it's something that's really best in slot for sure. But the alternative to that would be tech support. And tech support gives you like 25% skill damage, I believe, but that's, right after you get that first kill.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're running like a turret and drone build, you get that first kill, even in that's going to refresh and usually stay up most of the time. And I wish I spent more time with tech support. And unfortunately, with the named backpack with perfect tech support, it's an Alp Summit backpack. So I feel like they should have fixed that by now, because Alp Summit is like a repair skills healer kind of set. It just doesn't go with skill damage. So it would have been better if it was like a wyvern wear piece or something.
let
But
me
tech support's really good, I think. And I don't think it's really for AFK exactly, maybe more so than combined arms. But if you're going to run like glass cannon on a tech, like a skill damage build, I would recommend tech support. With combined arms, you're out shooting a lot more. For that, I would recommend kinetic momentum for sure.
Okay.
But for backpack pieces for skill damage, I think those are the two absolute best for skill damage.
I run tech support, so I can say for sure that tech support is, in my opinion, one of the best for skill talents. Now, yes, your first skill might seem difficult to get, but once you get it, it's over.
Yeah, it's
It's over.
completely over.
Yeah.
It's
So
just done.
yeah, I wouldn't have any reservation if you get a good backpack, new players, and you have tech support on it, and you're wondering if you want to go with combined arms. Tech support is just as good, and you actually do much less work than combined arms.
No, definitely. And I really wish that I'd tried this out more because I haven't tried tech support in a few title updates. And really what I remember from it is the damage that you put out from perfect combined arms compared to just regular tech support. The damage isn't even really so much different that it matters a whole lot either. So
Mm.
it's not like if you don't go without perfect combined arms, your skill build is nothing. It's still really, really good. It's just a totally different play style. You either popping your out of cover all the time to shoot, or you can sit back and enjoy that glass cannon piece, the extra damage from that more. And that's a really big thing too with glass cannon. I don't like it at all. Like I really, really don't like glass cannon, but there's a whole subset of players that really do enjoy it. And it amplifies all damage. It's not just skill damage like kinetic momentum is. So I get why some people are going to want to run that because it just does it, like I said, it amplifies all damage, your weapon damage, perfect combined arms compared, with like kinetic momentum, or let's say glass cannon with perfect combined arms with say the waveform and then your capacitor. It's amplifying all of those,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just your skill damage. So yeah, overall your glass cannon's going to deal a lot more damage, but I honestly would just run tech support with it.
Okay.
Otherwise, for the other backpack talents, I'd recommend like calculated is pretty good, but I'd recommend that with like a seeker mine artillery turret skill damage build. You want that for cooldowns with the new rigger gear set probably, or you can get I think it's called battery pack as perfectly calculated, and it's a new Empress piece.
Mm-hmm.
I'd recommend that too, just for faster, skill cooldowns. I think it cools them down by like 10%. So definitely that one's a good talent as well in this game on the backpack.
Okay. So those are your top three backpack talents for damage and skill builds, basically, because every single one of them you've called out are skill based. So what about chess pieces? What are your recommendations for chess piece talents that you can say from a DPS perspective or maybe from a skill play perspective? What are they?
Oh, for sure. Real quick, I was gonna say for DPS builds on a backpack, you're gonna want to go with Adrenaline Rush.
Oh, okay.
Adrenaline Rush is really good. If you're not going with Memento, of course, because Memento is an incredible piece. It might even be the best exotic in the game, and it just does so much. And definitely Memento is probably my favorite. But Adrenaline Rush is amazing as well, especially perfect Adrenaline Rush on the Matador. What's that getting you like 90? I think 90% bonus armor or something like that. Like, yeah, it's a little under 90% of bonus armor with the perfect one. And even the regular adrenaline rush talent mixed with intimidate, which is amplifying your damage by I think 30%. It's a lot. So that's a really good combo to run with the Lady Death or the Dark Winter. Really SMG builds where you're close because both of those talents require you to be within 10, I think 15 meters of the enemy. So those are really good for DPS builds. And then for headshot damage builds, I would go with Composure or Vigilance. Composure relies on you being in cover to get your damage up by about 15%. And then, of course, with Vigilance, you got that 25%. But once you take a hit, you're going to lose it for 4 seconds. And 4 seconds is, kind of a long time. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
getting hit over and over, you're going to lose Vigilance for a while. Even with the gift, it doesn't even increase your, weapon damage. It just decreases the buff that you lose from 4 seconds to 3 seconds. So there's that. There's a perfect version of it, and it's difficult to get in the Dark Zone because it's a DZ exclusive. Otherwise, Unstoppable Force is pretty good, but I haven't run it in many title updates. Versatile is another one I would highly recommend for DPS builds, especially if you're going to be running it with Hunter's Fury. I really like it with shotguns and SMGs. I haven't really used it with the rifles and LMGs and all that, but definitely SMGs and shotguns. It's a really, really good talent that I definitely recommend. even with the perfectly unbreakable zero F's chest piece. That's a Badger Tough chest piece.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, those are probably my main ones I'd say on the backpack. And then Shock and Awe is really good for status effects, skill damage. And those are just the main ones that I really enjoy and like. Otherwise, the rest of them I really rarely use. So we can move on to the chest talents next if you like.
Okay, so thank you very much for sharing that. And for those of you who are new, I mean, I hope you're picking up on some of the synergies that you can use, for these. So chess pieces. Which chess pieces would you recommend for new players to look out for, and why?
So for chess pieces, I'll start like I did before with the skill ones. So kinetic momentum is my favorite for skill damage. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said earlier, the glass cannon, a lot of people like it, a lot of people don't, and that's because it makes you paper thin basically, and like maybe you don't know or maybe you do know, but the multiplicative damage in this game where it says amplified is the best type of damage in this game. It's where you're going to get the most. The
Yes.
additive is not as good. So when you have something like glass cannon where your damage is being amplified by what is it, 30%, 25% for regular, I think 30% for perfect. So that's great and all, but you're also amplifying your damage against you by 50% for sure, just from the regular one. It's 60% from the perfect one. And that's, I mean, I forgot who did the math on this, but it's like half of your armor or something. It's a lot of, it's a ton of your health and armor. And I personally don't want to be that squishy, and especially a new player that's obviously newer to the game. You don't want to be dying that quickly. So in lieu of that, I would just go with kinetic momentum for a skill damage build. And the talent's kind of deceiving anyway. It seems like it gives you 15% skill damage per skill, but it actually gives you 30% on both. So that's
Mm.
something that you really want to keep in mind. If you want that 30% skill damage without getting an amplified 50 or 60% against you, like me, I would run kinetic momentum for sure for skill damage. And really, there's a few other ones like, Overwatch is pretty good, but that's about 12% skill damage. I really, really prefer kinetic momentum. I don't think there's anything better for it for a skill damage build in particular.
Okay. So I'll now, because you said that, if I don't know, you already probably know glass cannon has always been my, my favorite, but now that you
Oh,
say thirty
really?
percent, oh yeah, I play glass cannon. That's almost all my skill builds. If I'm not running a chess piece that belongs to the brand set, I'll play glass cannon. One of my main builds is a glass cannon build, kind of my AFK build. But now that you said kinetic momentum, I think I'm probably going to implement it with my status effect build so that I can build those stacks and, basically see how much more damage I can put out. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem, man. And for the DPS builds, I mean, there's actually a decent amount that you can pick from as well. And, like we were talking about earlier, there is a lot of dead talents in this game, but really one of my favorites for DPS is Obliterate, because it used to be, I believe, 15% or 20% weapon damage that you would get. It stacks
Mm-hmm.
up to 25 times now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's worth running. I really like it over Intimidate. For really, the reason why I like it is because Intimidate seems to, you'd think it procs a lot, and maybe it does with Adrenaline Rush. I don't use Adrenaline Rush much. I use the Memento, but I like having a Obliterate because it's just, I don't know. I like it more. It's 25% weapon damage. It's not that amplified 30 from Intimidate, which you can use, and it's definitely great with the Memento and Adrenaline Rush because you're always getting that bonus armor. I just personally prefer Obliterate. That's just the one I really like for DPS builds. Braced is really good as well, really for LMG builds, Bighorn, rifles. You know, it gives you what, 45% weapon handling, which
Mm-hmm.
is, what is that? Every 1%'s like weapon reload speed. Um, what the sway of the rifle scope, I believe it even calms down. It does a lot. The reload speed definitely is the big one though. The pestilence you could reload in like 2 seconds with braced and some weapon handling on your gear.
Really?
So that one's really good. Plus the merciless. If you're gonna use the merciless, you almost have to have braced. You want to make sure it's not all over the place, depending on if you're on console or PC. It has an insane recoil, and it shoots, I think, in 3-round bursts.
Mm-hmm.
So with braced and even some weapon handling on other pieces of your gear, it turns it into almost a laser. So that is definitely a talent that used to be a dead talent many title updates ago, and it's really, really useful now for DPS builds. And then for Spark, they fixed that, I think, in Title Update 12 or 11. It used to just proc out of nowhere. It just, as long as you landed a hit, it would just proc. So now that it doesn't, I didn't really use it even before that, but I don't think it's a dead talent. But it does increase your weapon damage by 15% for 15 seconds if you damage an enemy with a skill. So it's decent, but I would definitely prefer something like Braced or Obliterate. And I think Spark's more for like a skill build anyway.
Hmm.
Spotter's definitely really good. Once again, that's another talent they fixed that used to do, I believe, 30% or 33% weapon and skill damage, and it was always better than kinetic momentum, and I think glass cannon as well. But it now does only 15% to pulsed enemies, so I don't think it's as good anymore. But some people still run it. It's not a dead talent, but I just don't prefer it as much. Empathetic Resolve is definitely good for healer builds. I think it's probably an almost mandatory chess piece for a healer build if you don't have the Future Initiative chess piece, but that is a
Uh-huh.
raid exclusive item from Iron Horse. So, if you don't have that, then Empathetic Resolve is a great alternative for sure.
It's interesting that you spoke about it. I had somebody else on the show actually show their video. I said on the show on the channel, talk about their build, and they have the Future Initiative chess piece, but they instantly said if you don't have it, use Empathic Resolve. And so that's interesting that both of you are correlating that. So that's good. That's good.
Oh yeah, and then for other ones, like Unbreakable became really popular. I think it was a couple of title updates ago, in Title Update 10, I believe, and it's still actually really good. It's Obliterate got buffed. There's other talents, but Unbreakable is still really, really good. And
Hmm.
then you could use the Zero F's chess piece. That's a named Badger Tough chess piece with perfect Unbreakable, and that repairs 100% of your armor, and the cooldown's 55 seconds. So that one is really good as well for DPS hybrid builds. So, instead of taking like 25% weapon damage from Obliterate, you replace that with, being able to get 100% of your armor back every 55 seconds that an NPC or player breaks it. And I think that's definitely worth it if you want more survivability. That way you have your options of, do I want to be all red DPS where I can get shredded very quickly? Or do I want something in the middle where I can deal damage and take it as well? Or do I just want to go full tank or skill or something? And I think Unbreakable really fits this really good hybrid build, and you can mix that with the Memento. You can mix it with Adrenaline Rush for extra bonus armor, or just put on like Vigilance or something like that to just add more damage and then have more survivability on your chest piece. And Gunslinger is still pretty good, I guess. I think it used to be better back in the day, but I don't know if it's a totally dead talent, but I haven't used it in a while. And Headhunter, of course. That's the last one I'm going to mention. I think if you have a headshot damage build, I don't know how you could not run this. I don't know what else there is. I mean, what else would you
uh,
run on a chess piece?
Oh, Headhunter has a very, very good proposition. It's ridiculous, the talent itself, but you got to be a precise shooter to be able to enjoy it. And so, yeah, definitely, Headhunter is a very good one to have.
That's a good point to make too. That takes a lot of skill, especially with the NPCs in the Division 2. They like to move their heads around
Uh
in
huh.
weird ways, and it could be really difficult. And once you get up against the robot dogs, you know whatever, like the drones and all that stuff, then your build doesn't really stand much of a chance against just those. But when it comes to NPCs, the big chungas, if you mix Headhunter with the Nemesis, if you want to try to take down, a boss with a ton of health pool, or if you just want to use the Mantis, is what I would recommend. You're going to get up there in like the 20 million headshot damage, and you're just going to be able to chain those headshot kills, back to back. And I couldn't recommend anything else for a headshot damage build. Even if your skill isn't that great, you could use something else like Obliterate or even Braced if you want to, have more of a laser like weapon so you can, aim a little bit better. So that could be an alternative, is Braced on like a sniper build and just have, Vigilance on your backpack. That could definitely be a really good alternative to Headhunter, I guess.
Okay, man. You are an encyclopedia of knowledge of, with your talents, and you just basically knowing all of them. But that's why I wanted to have you on, man, because I had a feeling you would have a lot different perspective to share with with players as to how you approach each of these. So those were pretty much, some of the talents that new players will basically benefit from. And you also, I think you answered the second question as you were walking through, which was what are the best chest and backpack talent combos. While you were walking through the backpack talents, you were talking about their counterparts, and while you were walking with the chest, the chest piece talent, you were also talking about their backpack counterparts. And that's exactly how we build in a Division 2. If you're going to run a chest piece, that's you only have two talent slots, chest piece and backpack. And so you want to make sure that you're paying attention to that. And so that's pretty much it. Now, another thing I noticed was you were also talking about exotics as well. And some people, I had to run to my stash back and forth to show the exotics, because this clip is going to be basically kind of a live clip. And so the third question that I feel like a lot of players might have, and you propose, because that's basically what you're getting on your comment sections, are what are the best what is the best difficulty to farm exotics in the Division 2? What difficulty do you think is the best?
Okay, so that's actually a really good question, and I've been getting it a long time. It was one of the first questions I was gonna send you because, like I said, it's something I get a lot, and it's a little difficult to explain, but I'm gonna give it my best shot. So, what my example would be is Lincoln Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
So I could run Lincoln Memorial with my Hunter's Fury build. I could run that probably every 8, maybe 9 minutes. On heroic. Now, heroic has a 7% drop rate chance for exotics. Challenging has 5%. I'm unaware of what it is below that, but and that's so every time you run the mission, it's for, say you run Lincoln Memorial once on heroic, you have a 7% chance for that to drop. It's not like you have a 7% chance in total or whatever. So if you run it 20, 30 times or whatever, you're guaranteed to get it. It's like per time you run it.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends. If you could run Lincoln Memorial 10 times in an hour on heroic, and you could run it a couple times more or less or more on challenging, then you should just run it on heroic. But if there's this really big difference in how fast you could run it, then drop the difficulty. If you could do Lincoln Memorial like 6 times in an hour, but on challenging you could do it 10 times an hour or whatever, just an example. You want to go with challenging because you're going to be able to clear it more. The 2% chance of drop rate isn't worth it. It doesn't matter when you could run it so many more times. So that's the thing with exotics. The difficulty does not matter when it comes to how it drops. I've gotten a absolute completely god rolled Ninja Bike Messenger knee pads when knee pads were targeted loot in Manning National Zoo in like Title Update 10, and I got them totally god rolled on story mode. The difficulty doesn't matter about exotics. You always have to remember that. It depends on how much content you can go through, like per hour, pretty much, on challenging or heroic or story mode or whatever it is. Just remember how much time you put into it. It just depends. If you want to get that 7% chance from heroic, then you definitely, if you can run it that many times and it's not that much of a difference in challenging or below, then just stick with heroic. You can keep that 7% chance, and at the same time, you're going to be able to run it and clear it, just about as fast as anything else. And that's how I do it. I have all the exotics, but when if I want to farm for an exotic to help a clanmate or a friend or something, I always run it on heroic because I want that 7% chance, and I know I'm going to be able to clear it just about as good as I do challenging or anything else.
Okay.
As far as farming for exotics otherwise, you have to remember where the exotics come from. So like the chameleon, I believe, is black tusk, just like BTSU gloves, they're black tusk. The nemesis, like there's quest only ones like the nemesis, the chatterbox. you know, there's a lot of exotics in the game, and you need to know exactly where they come from. So, um, like this week, Grand Washington Hotel is invaded. So every morning, I remind my audience, hey, run Grand Washington Hotel on invaded and get Puck's blueprint. But definitely make sure you get that designated hitter deconstructed from Tidal Basin first. Once you craft it at the White House, it joins the general loot pool. So once you craft that nemesis, then it's in the general loot pool. You could farm targeted loot MMRs, and you could farm for it again. So that's something with quest only exotics that you need to remember is just, if it's a quest only, you have to do the quest first. And then if it's not a quest only exotic, then of course you could just farm for it, usually with whatever the targeted loot is, or if it's a season reward, you usually need to unlock it first. So, just know where it comes from is a big help. So that's something else you need to keep in mind. And then the factions that they come from have a little bit higher of a drop rate chance for them. As far as I know, I believe they have a few percent extra of a drop rate chance. So, Coyote's mask. If it's mass targeted loot at Jefferson Trade Center, the boss Coyote at the end is a hyena. They're more likely to drop something like the Chatterbox or the Coyote's mask because they're a hyena faction exotic.
Okay. Sounds good, man. Sounds good. So I mean, that's pretty much the basis of getting, farming exotics. I mean, there are many videos that intricately describe how you can get individual pieces for the ones that have quests. And one of the things that I'll say is just ask. I always say this every time because you never know. Like right now on the season, and this is just an extra for you guys. On the season right now, we have a holster that you can get at level 100. It's the waveform holster. Well, as you can see, I have one, but in my season level, I am not at level 100 yet. I'm actually at level 70. So how did I get a waveform when I haven't reached the season requirement? Well, I asked people that had it already. We were running in the dark zone, and because they had it, it dropped in their loot pool. So once they got a waveform holster, and I think that day the dark zone was dropping holsters. So because they already had that holster in their loot pool, they were able to share it with me. So now I just can start using the waveform holster while I still finish my entire season level and start putting and crafting theory builds together before I get my capacitor or whatever other items I want to use. Okay, so moving on to the next question, basically. What is your favorite combat tip? Basically explain what you meant when you said cover to cover is something that players can leverage to be better and effective in combat.
Oh yeah, so this is something I utilize every time I play, and I don't always see people doing it that much. I see a lot of people getting up and running around throughout the battlefield and that not, utilizing something that I feel like the Division 2 has something very really, really authentic about it. I don't know what other word to use, honestly, but it's the fact that you can get into cover, you can do a cover to cover move, you could reload while you're in a cover to cover, motion. And at the same time, you could swap weapons. So if you go cover to cover, you can reload your weapon, then you could swap it to your secondary or your pistol or your specialization. And then also when you do that cover to cover move, I don't know exactly what the damage mitigation numbers are, but it's extremely high. I mean, if I have a sliver of health left, well, maybe not a sliver, but just maybe half of my health left and all my armor gone, I could do a cover to cover move across the battlefield, and I most likely won't die because the damage mitigation you get from doing cover to cover, and if you're hit while you're doing a cover to cover move,
Mm-hmm.
you almost take no damage at all. It's, negligible. It's barely any. And that's something that I don't see utilized that often, and I use it every day. I use it on a Hunter's Fury build where I'm always getting bonus armor, armor on kill, health on kill. As soon as I get low and, something bad happens, I'm in a bad spot, I like to take cover and use that cover to cover mechanic to get out of the area. I don't want to just turn around and run around. I just want to get into cover and then start looking for the next cover to move cover to cover and take that damage mitigation, reload my weapon if I need to, or you could use the Ninja Bike Messenger knee pads and it'll reload when you do cover to cover or vault. But otherwise, if you don't have those on, you want to do that cover to cover, reload while you're doing that, swap to another weapon if you need to. There's a lot of tactical advances that you can do in this game, and I just don't see them being utilized as much as I think they should be. And that's a huge gameplay tip that, it definitely worth knowing if you don't know it already and get used to it because this is a cover based shooter at the end of the day. It's an RPG as well, of course, that's the main element of it, but that cover to cover, that's so important in this game. I feel like for DPS build, skill build, whatever build you're using, maybe not a tank, but anything else, that cover to cover mechanic is amazing, and there's so much you could do with it. There's a lot of options with it, and the damage mitigation you get from it is amazing.
Cool beans, man. As you've been talking, I actually ran into some enemy NPCs and I've just been using it. And I'm sure some of the shotgunners are chasing me. I'm using a controller, so I'm like, if I was using a mouse and a keyboard, man, it's actually way better on PC. But I just wanted to kind of showcase it as you were describing it as well. And so finally, the last thing that I feel like, for this video anyways, will be how to actually get XP quickly. Because, we have new players coming into the game. The game just went on sale. I was showing you the price points on the Epic Games Store. Even with the whole DLC, it's such an attractive price point. So what would you recommend as a means for players to get XP very fast in the game, to do their season levels, to be able to get rewards, and basically to be able to level up their watches as well?
Yeah, no, that's a really, really great question. So with your watch, there's so many benefits to it, and the season as well. Like the waveform, the exotics, all the stuff you can get from the season reward track. Me personally, I want to get through that as fast as possible. Not everyone has to grind through it really fast like I did, but if you want to, you can. If you just want to have a better, more efficient way of farming XP and being able to level up your watch faster, there's definitely some cool ways to do it. And they don't require you to be in the dark zone either. You can go landmark to landmark if you'd like. Not a lot of people like to go into the dark zone, so you don't have to. But if you want to, landmark to landmark does net you a lot of XP. So that's something you can do, of course. But what I honestly do is control points. Control points is definitely the best way to do it besides the dark zone. And I always use Sleeping Giant. That's my favorite one to do because you could just fast travel to the attic safe house. Then you just go to Sleeping Giant. It takes maybe 60 seconds to run to the control point.
Mm-hmm.
And then, use directives. Unfortunately, directives increase XP. I think you get 125% extra XP if you have all of them on, but I don't even use all the directives. It depends on what build you want to use with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're using a DPS build, you don't have to use all the directives. Like maybe, so with a turret and drone build, when I farm XP, I don't use that skill cooldown pickup one where you have to pick up those green skill cooldowns. I
Mm-hmm.
never use that. It's too much bothersome for me, and it's not worth the extra 25% XP. So also don't feel like you have to use all the directives. You don't even have to use any of them really, but if you want to get the most XP possible, then yeah, directives are going to be a great way to go about it. And then of course, when you go to Sleeping Giant, you just take it over. You can do this solo. I even have a video of me doing it solo. You can do that, or you can do it. I would recommend 3 people, but you can do it 4 as well. Just always remember, the more people you have in the group, the more the enemy's health pool gets bigger, and just the more bullet spongy they get. So it's up to you on what you want to do, but I can do this solo, 3 or 4 people. Go to Sleeping Giant, run from the safe house, which is called the attic, run to Sleeping Giant, fire the flare, start up the fight. And as soon as you feel comfortable, I usually run to the other end of the control point and climb the rope and the ladder and just sit up there with a turret and drone build and wipe them out. But I also do it with my Hunter's Fury build and just, clear the whole place out just by running through it. And then you could finish that fairly quickly. I believe in total you get about 695,000 XP each time you clear it. And the last time I used my stopwatch on it, it took me about 6 minutes and 4 or 5 seconds for me and one other of my clanmates to run that with, I believe, 4 directives on. And that's a lot of XP. That's a whole watch level if you count the kills, the XP you get from killing the NPCs. And then there's always, well, not always, but usually there's a resource convoy or an elite convoy there as well, or around the area. So that's going to get you another watch level basically. So, and also a season level as well. So I think that's the best way of doing it is Sleeping Giant. And if you're comfortable with the dark zone, definitely hit up landmarks. And remember, depending on what, difficulty you're comfortable with, make sure to set your difficulty before you go into the dark zone. Because if you set it to like normal, as far as I know, I don't think you get heroic landmarks or challenging landmarks. I think you need to have it at, heroic to get heroic landmarks. But just run through them if you want, if you're comfortable with the dark zone. Otherwise, stick to control points. They're the best way to farm XP with directives.
Okay, okay. Sounds good. So, um, you know, this is basically an initiative for us to, continue talking about the technical aspects of the game. And so that's why I'm really excited to have had Shadow Gaming on here. He and I have been good buds for a long time. We always talk about the division, and I think we've been talking about the division since the Division 1. And that's one of those really, really interesting aspects to the Division community. So Shadow Gaming, thank you so much for jumping in on this video to basically inform the community. I really appreciate you being here. For those of you who are new to the Division 2 or who've been in the community and you don't know Shadow Gaming, please go check his channel out. He really keeps you informed of the daily targeted loot, basically talking about them from this particular perspective. So I wanted him to come on here, do his thing, and basically show you guys kind of how much the Division community enjoys and knows their game. So that's basically the end of this video. In the comment section, if you have any other questions and you're new and you're just finding this video, go ahead and ask. There are people in the community that will be happy to answer the questions. And if I see the questions or if Shadow sees the questions, he'll be happy to answer as well. So thank you guys very much for your time and audience. I appreciate y'all so much. Hopefully we'll see in another video. Take care and peace out.